At FitFiliate, we're excited to announce the Affiliate Engineering Seminar. Coming soon to an affiliate near you, don't miss this exciting opportunity to create the affiliate of your dreams. Link in show notes or in bio to register. Welcome to the FitFiliate Podcast. And welcome back to our next episode of the FitFiliate Podcast, joined by our new co-hosts at Feels, Dr. Tom McCoy and Jen Pishko from McCoy Medical. Helps give me a break from Tony, so that's all good. But I am also joined today by Tony, as always, and ever grateful for that. I should be nicer to him.
This is so much utility in your voice, Lisa. You're not fooling anyone.
It almost sounded believable.
Almost. Yeah. I've been practicing all week.
You're not fooling anyone.
This is part 3 of our series with McCoy Medical, talking all things about health and health practices in the affiliate and how we can marry the two together. So should be a fun chat to round out some of the other concepts we've talked about in previous weeks.
I think that the conversation before this in Lisa's new OnlyFans, which is only plants, she gets off on blueberries, would be a much better podcast. But we're here now.
That's behind the paywall, Tony.
This is true. This is true. I like this. No, this is the one I'm the most excited about. I think you guys are obviously part 3. Well, if anybody listening, this is in part 3. You're probably likely wondering how this applies to or could possibly affect the affiliate. So it's the one I'm the most excited about, which is why we're trying to get to this point. But if we would have started here, I think everybody else would have kind of lost the vision of the whole thing. So I'm glad we took the route that we did to get here. But I think this will be one of the more valuable ones for everybody listening to, probably. So I'm excited for that one. But the other two have just been fun. So if anybody's listening to this, is already listening to the other two, more fun's coming. But if not, go back and listen to the other two, because I don't think this one will make as much sense without it. So I guess let's get into it. The last two we talked about, well, basically the theory, and then we talked about kind of the practice of it. And the one thing we really haven't talked about that much is like, what does it look like in application in an affiliate, right? Like, or really, what could it look like, I should say. And not necessarily even just in terms of like what happens in terms of like working with you guys, but like really what it would look like if, I think the thing I'm the most interested in anyways too, is if affiliate owners could step out of, the definition of CrossFit and could better understand the, what CrossFit could be, right? What's the application and implementation? And I think that's the exciting part to me of all things that are in health, in the CrossFit health space, because it really becomes that sort of like a realignment of application where I think we all got distracted. So the application part of this is the most exciting part to me, not necessarily because I think it really solves so many of the problems inside the affiliate landscape. But I also think it speaks to what the entire thing that we were all after in the beginning was, which is like, I think what we're doing here inside the gym is actually increasing the quality and the length of people's lives. But it was only anecdotal. So now it's new and exciting because we have people like you to prove it truly. And that part's exciting.
Yeah, we're fired up too, Tony. Did you see that CrossFit started releasing snippets of the conference now?
Yeah, I was wondering when they were going to do it. I'm glad that it finally came out because I was afraid. Part of me, a little cynical. I was like, if this gets benched, like some things get benched, I was going to be sad. So I was so excited when they started trickling out.
Yeah, no, I'm fired up about that, and I do hope that if people have managed to make it to this point and suffered through the first 2 episodes, that listening to those talks will help give context to why CrossFit is such an effective modality to improve and optimize health. And so I think that just as a member of the affiliate community is really important for everyone to listen to. Mm-hmm. And then from an application standpoint and the actual logistics of making that happen, that's essentially what we're trying to do, right? So moving from the theoretical to the actual implementation. And if we want to get into that today, we can talk about what that looks like.
Let's party. Let's party.
All right. Getting right to it.
We obviously spend a lot of time, I wouldn't say with struggling affiliate owners. I think that the average person that we work with tends to be a little bit more on the side of, I mean, there's definitely struggling ones, but most of them come in not because the business is struggling, but because I almost want to say purpose is struggling, right? Like
Mhm.
you've done it for a long enough time. You still love what you do, but you're kind of like, I guess, am I making a difference, right? Am I making an impact? And when something like that sits on your shoulders, it's not a light load, right? That is a very heavy back squat when you're like, is this forever? And what does forever look like? Because like 5:30 a.m. classes and standards for burpees and thrusters for the rest of my life isn't, it gets to be one of these things where it's not that people, grow out of that per se, but there's definitely an expansion in the conversation that I think so many affiliate owners want to have, right? Where they know that the thing that they're doing is making, is breaking open this whole bigger conversation, I guess. But most of them don't really know how to get into that conversation. And like, so when they come in with us a lot, most of what we ask them in the very beginning is, why does your affiliate need to exist? Right. And so I think in the beginning, most of them are very confused and that they try to espouse some version of the talking points of, constantly very functional fitness, high intensity, et cetera. But most of them, I think, especially when they've been around for 10 years plus, got into it because it changed their life. And then they wanted to change more lives because they wanted to kind of pay it forward. And you, to a certain degree, once you see the workouts over and over and over again, it's like, okay, yeah, they're changing their life. But after 10 years of those workouts, those people, I just get off a client call talking about this. Those clients almost forget how bad their life was before, right? They're like, no, things are good now. And so they get very distracted. So the health conversation to me, again, I think I said this, but is so important because it helps us all, not us on this call, but the other people in the affiliates, the affiliate owners, really relearn, the application of what this is doing for people outside of like, we're just going to improve your Fran time, right? I don't like to minimalize it to that, but it does get very caught up in that. And so I think when people come in and we talk to them, we say, why does your affiliate need to exist? We dig them into it and we ask them, and they get back to some degree of helping other people. But then as soon as we look and we say, great, love it. Now show me what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
And then we get into what they're doing and I'm like, these things aren't lining up, right? Like,
Mhm.
and what has ended up happening for most of them after a long time is like, they just start doing what other people are doing or what they think they should be doing or this, that, and they kind of lose their way. And having something like this is such a cool, I guess, to use the phrase, a cool North Star for them to pull them back to be like, oh, wow, we can provide a bigger service. And I think become excited about the service all over again, like they were 10 years ago.
So you basically described me 3 years ago, where being an affiliate owner for so long, and I was ready to sell it because I didn't know what else to do. Like I didn't feel like it was growing. We
Yeah.
were never going to be 250 members big. Like that just wasn't going to be the size. And for a long time, I felt like that's what I needed to chase. Like how many members can I get? Why am I failing at this? Like it was a very tough time realizing like, okay, my affiliate can stay open. We're doing what we can. We've been doing what we thought we should do. Where's the personal growth? How are we changing? How are we evolving? Where's the progression? Like what's next, right? Because it had been 7 or 8 years at that point, and it was kind of like, well, I'm just standing still at this point. And like for me, that's a very unsatisfying way to exist without knowing kind of how to take a step forward. And I was like, all right, I'll settle. I'll do something else. And then it was like, but what else am I going to do? Because literally CrossFit is life. And like, this is something I couldn't imagine not doing what I'm doing, but I also know it couldn't stay in the same spot, not having any sort of evolution with it. Right.
Mhm.
And so there's some self-reflection in that from a timing standpoint, I think as well. It's kind of paired up with when some of this stuff started, but exactly to your point, Tony, like that's exactly why.
Yeah, I think, there's two things that all of us as humans need in our professional career, right? One is a sense of control.
Mhm.
And you don't necessarily have to have control, but you need to at least believe that you have some degree of control. And two is a mission or a purpose,
Mhm.
right? And to your point, after doing the same thing for a decade, that can become clouded, right? And kind of reconnecting with what that drive was and having a deeper impact of the understanding of what CrossFit truly does for everyone who's coming in. I think, at least for me, now when I go in there, it literally is the backdrop for everything that I see happening.
Yeah.
Right. When I see people doing high intensity interval work, right, I'm thinking about their VO2s improving and how that's impacting their health span and lifespan. When I see, women in their 50s and 60s lifting heavy weight, I think about how that's mitigating a lot of the hormonal changes that happen to them. When I see people who otherwise don't interact with humans a lot during their day because they work from home and they're sitting on the screen the whole time, I see what's happening to their neurotransmitters and their hormones literally, in my head. And that makes me so much more excited about being in the space and coaching and being able to round that out with the work that we do on the medical side to make it a one-stop shop.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to have this conversation sometimes too, because I try to put myself, in line with who I think's listening to it. And I feel bad sometimes because some of the stuff we talk about on here, a new affiliate owner hasn't experienced yet. So they're just like, they're in it. They're loving it. Right. They just finished their first open, like life is good. And I'm like, I'm not telling you these things are coming, but like to your point, Tom, and I'm glad you brought it up. Like there is a common thread in all humans. And like, we all need that agency and we all need that contribution, regardless of what, you feel like you have control over. We must feel like we have some degree of control of that situation. And we also need to feel like we are contributing to a bigger picture. And I think anybody who's listening to this can probably think back to some point in their life, even if they were a child and they felt like they didn't have one of those things. You're kind of like a caged animal, right? You become, almost restless in it. And it's not that it's an inevitability when owning an affiliate. It's just an inevitability in life in general. You could own a bakery, you could own an affiliate, you could own anything. But if you do the same thing every single day, if you design your life to do the same thing every single day, don't be surprised when all of a sudden you feel unfulfilled, bored, or otherwise. And, we've talked about it in the last couple of episodes. It's just remaining that student of life is so much bigger than just academia and really being like a smart person, right? It's more about if you can remain continually learning, even if it's about how to make bread, right? Like that's the easiest way to stave off this thing. And in the fitness world, I think where we all run aground in it is that, especially in CrossFit, because it makes such an impact on people's lives. It's almost like you get to a certain point where it's like, oh, it's just so close, but yet it's still out of reach, right? Like I can remember teaching seminars every single weekend and leaving there knowing that 20 or 30 lives I just changed forever, like blew their mind. They were never going to think about, movement the same way ever again. And knowing that it wasn't going to matter, right? I needed to be a longer conversation, but there was no way for me to do it. Same thing happened in the gym. Like you would have constantly very functional movement conversations, a little bit of nutrition, some stuff like that. But like, there was still the other piece, right? Like there was the home life, there was the ecology, there was those things. And you're like, how do I really make a difference if I can't get into that conversation, right? Because you could see them come in and try to put that stuff behind and try to outwork those bad situations and all those things. And what I'm not saying that you need to move into a therapy role with your clients, but we all feel it, right? And if you've been in it long enough, all of you guys that are new affiliates, to Jen's point, it's coming. If you really care about your people, you are going to find yourself in the very near future in a situation where you're just like, fuck, I need, and there's nothing you'll be able to do. But I think as we move into this conversation, what we stop talking about is CrossFit isn't a definition, but we start talking about CrossFit's application. And so it's like, hey, let's take a look at your whole life, right? How is this thing improving that whole thing? And now that lets people start to have that bigger conversation. So for people like Jen, myself, and other affiliate owners, it's like, it's almost relieving to a certain degree when you get there. But if you've not gotten there yet, you could be like, why does this matter? Right? Like, why do we even care? Like, what about the open? Right. And so I try to be cognizant of that through this conversation, but at the same time, it's a great inevitability. So I think the further we can prepare them for it, the better. But the health thing, up till this point, I feel like up until that Austin summit, there was kind of this collective resistance towards it, I think, in the CrossFit space of like, is that just like the thing that the CrossFit doctors do? Like, what does that have to do with me? But now they're coming together and hopefully, really, really quickly, because, so many affiliate owners need it. Because the one thing that they all struggle with is like, how do I get people to pay me more than $150 an hour or per month rather, because that's become the universally identified price point for CrossFit. But we know we need to charge more, and they're like, no one will pay it, right? But that's because you keep selling them the same thing that they can get from everybody else. So what I think we really have here is not only a way to find your fire again, but we also have a way to decommoditize and decouple this thing again, which is the most exciting part to me.
And I think
oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say that I think that when the whole CrossFit Health Initiative first came out, I think it was a little bit lost on affiliate owners to a degree how to, integrate the two, because, what they saw were a heap of big brains sitting on a platform having big conversations and going, yeah, but Betty comes in and she hates her own life, but she just wants to squat better. Like she just wants to prove in the open and and we didn't see a pathway to connecting them. And now I think that through like the work that you do and others have done and breaking it down, there's a real way now that we can connect the dots to go, this is why this is the next logical step in what we're doing.
I do want to say too that, I mean, then this ties into what we were saying before about affiliates earlier in their kind of life course, that the same is true for people coming in your door, right? And so, and Jen and I see this all the time, is that there's a time and place for everything. And we should all feel really good that Betty coming in and just doing her squats is a form of therapy. And that is okay too. And if that's all that she wants and or needs at this point, then that's great. Because if you try and put more on her plate and she's not ready for that, you're potentially just driving her away or putting more on her allostatic load that she's not ready to handle. Yeah. But just as that moment comes for the affiliate when they need more, there will be a moment when Betty will want more too, and you will be ready and prepared to give that to her in a way that's going to be meaningful.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the powerful linking then of having that understanding of, you don't need to have everybody come in and say, here's all the things. Right. It's like, we can meet you, because we say in CrossFit, when we're talking about bringing people into CrossFit, we meet you where you're at.
Yep.
So that still needs to be the thing, but everyone's going to be at a different place on their journey, so we can serve them for longer on their journey, rather than having members who, if you look at, your attrition, they might, the tail might be 2 years, it might be 18 months before they decide they want something else.
Yep.
So you're prepared for that, to extend that out now, because you have got something else and can dig deeper, rather than, throwing them at a buffet on the first day and saying, here,
yes,
take your fill.
And I think it's about being effective, right?
Yeah.
And this was something that was so funny when we did the MDL2, to have like 15 doctors trying and listening to them try to teach the front squat. You have never heard so many hyper verbose individuals who were committed to talking so much because they wanted you to understand how smart they were. They didn't give a shit about whether you could do a front squat or not.
Yeah.
There was so much self-validation included in my knowledge of biomechanics, and this is why it's important. And let me tell you about your hormones while you're in the bottom. It's like,
keep it simple, stupid.
yeah. And so I committed that day. I was like, I'm not allowed to say more than 2 words for any cue. Yeah. Right. And that made me an infinitely better coach coming back. I was like, by far the most important thing that I learned. Right. And it comes back to what we're talking about, is that there's a time and place for everything. And if you want to be effective, it's about understanding what that person is ready for and what is going to be most impactful for them. Right. And then building on those successes over time.
For sure.
So conceptually, right, and it kind of comes back to this question, and I pardon my voice, I don't know what's happening, but what comes first? I'm so excited. It's also because my kids have been sick for like 10 days, and so like this is just the ramifications of spring break. Yeah. It's just allergies.
Like, she's given me COVID 3 times, and she always says it's allergies. She's like, "Oh, I had allergies last week." I'm like, "Yeah, sure you did."
Yeah.
What comes first, the horse or the cart, right? And it's like CrossFit came out as this beautiful, pristine picture that was like all the way over here, right? And it was in a frame and it was pretty and we all understood it. But then before that, on some other side, there was 1,000 jigsaw puzzle pieces and everybody had some some piece or two or whatever, but like where it actually created this big, perfect ideological vision of what we all saw CrossFit to be, like how did we take all of these different jigsaw puzzle pieces and put them together, right? Whether you're a coach or an owner or a physician or a member or whatever it is, like not only was there maybe not enough connection and dialogue between all of the jigsaw puzzle pieces together, but then, you know, what was the way that it created this beautiful, pristine thing that we all like were mesmerized and, you know, our lives changed by. And I think there's some clarity behind organizing those jigsaw puzzle pieces. And it comes to supporting, you know, affiliate owners and coaches with understanding ways they can leverage other pieces, right, and what they're trying to do. And so I think we are getting there. And just, you know, the more time that Tom and I get to talk with affiliate owners from all over the place, like getting an understanding of what their journeys have been like, and then also potentially what their scope is to be able to start doing more. And everybody's a little bit different, right? And so it's just supporting that in the best way that we can.
Well, and this is the reason why we've structured kind of how we work with different affiliates the way that we have, and that it's not, no two are the same. Right. And it ranges from, we can just be a resource for you where you can just say, here, you may want to talk with these guys, to you being actively involved in collecting most of the data, and it runs the gamut, right? Because everybody's at a different spot, and you may start at one place and then eventually be able to graduate and move up to another, right? And it's a continuum. And it doesn't make sense for us to try and push, you know, one strategy or approach when you're not ready for that, because that's not going to set you up for success.
For sure. Yeah.
It's the same as a woman that comes in to do the back squats, right? She might not be ready for more, but she might one day be ready for more.
Yeah. And, you know, to Lisa's point about the big brain thing too, I think the health thing was the right initiative at the right time. It took its time to run its course. And it was a funny thing to be on the other side of it. You know, obviously not invited to the health party, so to speak. And thank God, because I would not have belonged there. But to not have been in those early day conversations, but it was mostly an exploration, right? And I think, you know, Greg was at least smart enough to be like, do we have something here? Let's play around with this. And I think that was a lot of what it was. But to your point, Tom, in really the industry in general, I think everybody loves to use the talking point of, you know, the elegant solution to the world's most vexing problem, right? We talk about this. I think every affiliate owner can say it or has said it, right? And we know it and we believe it, but who's verifying it, right? And so this was always a thing that was living out there, where it was just like, we know it to be true because we have hundreds of anecdotal experiments that are happening inside the gym, but like, sort of, right? There was just not really the data to back it up, aside from the fact that, like, I know they're getting better, they feel better, they look better, and life has gotten better. But outside of that, it wasn't there. And so, you know, comically, to that point that you had with like the MDL2, you see this quite a bit. And the one thing that I think Greg really did for everybody was he just made it all so digestible. And what we have now is this confluence where they're starting to come together. Because, like, to your point about the MDL2, you get people like, you know, Jeff Cavalier, who's an incredibly intelligent human, but if you ever heard him try to define or identify fitness, you know, or break it down as to what is fitness, his example or his explanation of it is the same sort of overcomplicated, obtuse, undigestible, misunderstood exploration of what is fitness compared to Greg's, which is like 10 general physical skills, constantly varied functional movement, work capacity, right? So it's like these things are starting to come together where people like yourself get to step forward and be like, I align better with this practical application sort of thing. And I'm glad that it's come to this point where we're at a point where these two worlds have collided, where it's, you know, there's a lot of doctors. I think the other part of this is it wasn't just the big brains. It was like big brains made us feel a certain way to begin with. It was like, I feel dumb in this room. But the other part of it was like, there was almost like a war. It was like an unspoken civil war that like you proudly had as a CrossFitter to be like, I'm anti-doctor. But that was just foolish, right? It was just an ignorant sort of thing. And so when they started coming together, I think people were paying attention, but we felt infringed upon. But now these two worlds are starting to talk to each other. And then when you go into that health summit in Austin and you had the big brains on the stage and they're all talking about the verifiable data and the science behind their studies, their life's work, just coincidentally happening to exist inside a CrossFit affiliate, got everybody in that room. All the affiliate owners were like, "Did you hear that? Like, it's us. Like, we're special now." And I think that was a perfect combination. And I'm glad that it happened when it did. But I'm also glad that it brought forth people like yourself. And so, maybe I guess because I know you guys have been doing it for a while, at the affiliate. I know you're doing it at Proven as well. And maybe if we can look at like what the breakdown, like what a day-to-day looks like for an average person potentially, or how this works in terms of application. Because I think what most people would be surprised and also reassured by is just how simple it is, right? It doesn't require like bring in the lab coats, bring in all these things. It's like, nope, what you're doing is already working. We just need to start validating it and verifying it and then checking on it, because that's what CrossFit has always been. It's always been quantifying, right? But I think people use that word and they're like, oh, I'm quantifying. I'm like, that means you have to go back and make sure that it's improving. You don't just be like, I quantify because I put my score on the board, right? So like there has to be some degree of following up, and now we've got it.
You take that one?
Yeah, I think we can talk a little bit about what kind of the journey looks like for a coach or an affiliate that wants to start to develop their health home and potentially work on this with us as the medical resource. But it essentially starts with establishing a relationship, just as it does with our patients, right? And affiliates who are interested, right? We have a jot form on our website. They fill it out. And that kind of starts the process where we then connect and talk about kind of where they are in their journey, what their interest is, what their background is, and kind of what their vision is and why they're interested in this in the first place.
Yeah.
The next phase, because I think we're all to a certain degree experiential learners, is for them to go through the patient process, right? So they have an understanding of what actually is happening and that they can convey that to members who may subsequently be going through it themselves, and they can help be a navigator for them. In addition to that, if everyone is on the same page and we decide to move forward, then that coalesces in a retreat or an educational session where we come together over 2 to 3 days, everyone in the same spot. And we basically give the educational foundational background as to what our principles are and why we emphasize them, and materials that you can utilize to help increase your knowledge base and convey the importance to your members. In addition to that, you would get subsequent information about how to reach out to groups and entities that are outside of your community as it stands now, so that you can really play the role, not just of a health navigator or health coach within your affiliate, but allowing you to do outreach to communities who aren't in your affiliate already, who probably need it more than the people who are there, honestly. And then the relationship after that really is based on where the affiliate is, I think, in their trajectory and the bandwidth of the person and how much responsibility they want to take on for the patient journey. And that's different for everybody. And I think that it starts with you having the education and us just being essentially a referral resource for you. And you don't really have to do anything else if you don't want to. Yeah. And if you're not ready, then you're not ready, and we can handle all of it. Up to, the next phase would be you essentially functioning as the health coach, right? And folks come in, they get all of their data, they get their lifestyle concepts planned, but then they are going to need someone to help navigate and prioritize and execute on what we give them to do. Sure. And then that relationship with the member is something that can be, right, an additional revenue resource for the affiliate going forward that they could build into a tier plan if they wanted to, or it could be a separate offering. Right. And the third phase, right, is a much bigger commitment where that affiliate could potentially purchase a lot of the equipment that we do to get the diagnostics, and they're accumulating all of that revenue for themselves. And then we just become, the medical resource to, screen and verify that the labs and everything else are where they should be, provide support if we need to from a medical standpoint. But you are captaining the ship and controlling inputs and outputs at that point.
Makes sense. It's almost too simple to some degree, and it's completely logical. It's obviously why we're so excited about it, right? But maybe, so let's just say that like I I walk into Chagrin Falls to CrossFit, right? And
Mhm.
I'm just a normal person. What does that journey look like to me? I can essentially go one of two ways, or how does that look?
Well, so from an athlete standpoint, right? And I think this is part of it. This has been some of the developmental process, I think, because we have the conversations with people that are members already that are, like, hey, this is awesome. I can, ask my coach, to be my doc and, do labs and come in and get my VO2 tested. And like, that's awesome. Right. And so there's already that relationship that's been established with our members that have been with us for so long that now they know that they have a trusted resource that they can now get something else from. Right. So I think that conversation's a little bit different. Right. And so what's interesting for us, right, is being able to have conversations outside of the 150 people that come into our affiliate, right, that are just really interested in having a trusted medical team that's going to help them kind of triangulate all of the different pieces and parts of their life that ultimately show them the door to the affiliate when they come out of their appointment, right? So I think that depending on who you are, right, those conversations are a little bit different. And from an affiliate owner standpoint, the latter, being able to have, a conversation with somebody more about the implications of how to take control of their health that don't necessarily start with, the old school definition of what CrossFit is, like that's been very empowering to me to be able to talk to somebody about their health that leads them to CrossFit instead of starting with CrossFit and hoping that they understand that it's important for their health. So kind of shifting the paradigm in which, we talk to our community members and stuff, but like in actual practical application of it, right? Like you start with a conversation, right? And I think we've talked about this, in times before. It's like, okay, well, we need to figure out where you are in life. Like, do you want to get healthier? Do you need a medical professional? Do you want to understand how to perform better at the gym? Are you trying to lose 20 pounds? Are you sleeping like shit? Like, what's going on that makes you feel like you want to have a conversation about your health, right? And that's with the health coach, right? That's with me. And then, kind of deciding what's the best way and path forward, right? Like, well, let's have a doc weigh in on this, right? Let's go through an intake appointment with a doc and go through some of your medical history and decide what type of diagnostics are, appropriate to kind of assess where you are, and then deem an action plan to get you feeling better or sleeping better, performing better, all of the different things, right? And that's the start of somebody's journey, like whether they're an affiliate member or not, right? It's just, conversation.
But I think the thing to remember too is that so much of what we do and the importance and the value that comes from this is that it's generating buy-in, and that having the prospective member be able to tap into information that helps them understand the why and gives them goals and things to work towards, and that can be tracked and measured over time is very powerful, right? And actually making improvement, right? And it's akin to how you may approach a nutrition strategy, right? Like we can talk about how to build a plate. You can talk in general about what numbers to hit. But if you track and weigh and measure for a week to really train your eye or to get a deeper understanding, you're going to be that much more effective, right? And so for a lot of people, if it's like, okay, well, I need support on nutrition. It's like, okay, well, what kind of support? Like, what can you handle right now? Well, if it's like, I just switched to night shift and I got 5 kids and my husband got laid off, I'm probably not going to ask you to start weighing and measuring, right? But that can be a progression. You meet the person where they are, you talk big picture, general principles. That person is going to come to a point to where they are ready for more. They want more, and that will generate engagement and improved outcomes. And that just becomes a positive feedback cycle to where they will continue to be ready for deeper dives and a deeper understanding of where they are from a health standpoint. And then you can lay that all out for them. Now, I am always careful to let folks know that if we don't get all of that information, there's always the potential that there's going to be things that we don't know. So if I have my druthers, I do always like to get all of the data up front, because then I can make you the most accurate and comprehensive plan to execute on. And you may not decide to, go after some of these components right away. That's fine. Our job is to help you triage. If you're going to pick one or two of these things, what's the most important thing to start with first? And we can shelf the other stuff for now. That's totally fine. But I love getting everything up front, because then I really know, okay, this is what's most important. I don't have to worry about that because I did not get it. Right.
And I think Jen said something really important there, which, you know, being able to say, you know, I'm a health coach, which helps affiliate owners reframe that identity from I'm just a CrossFit coach, I'm just an affiliate owner. And they have that almost limiting cap on, you know, almost dismissive of the power of what they do. By reframing that identity as I'm actually a health coach, will get them past some of those limiting things that let them actually charge what their service is worth, because it's I'm positively affecting people's health outcomes. I'm not just teaching burpees and thrusters, and they're one tool we use, and understanding that that's not the thing. That's
Mhm.
just one of the tools, same as, you know, testing the VO2 or your blood work. They're all tools that when you deploy them at the right time has a powerful impact. But I think reframing, giving affiliate owners a capacity to reframe that identity, I think will lead to a big change as well in how they view what they do and move past some of those obstacles and blocks that they have.
Yeah, and I think that should be part of the conversation that hopefully affiliate owners and coaches have had in some capacity at some point in their past, right? It's like, okay, well, why are you coming into my affiliate? Well, I'm going to help you get better at, I'm going to get you stronger, faster, you know, I'm going to help you look better naked. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, we're going to test you when you come in on day one. And, you know, maybe you did 50 burpees in 10 minutes, and then we're going to test you again in 6 months. And maybe you did 50 burpees in 4 minutes. Like, that's an actual improvement and a test of how far you've come, right? And it's that same construct, right? But now we're just looking at different types of health metrics, right? And so it's like, well, how are you going to show me that I'm getting healthier? Well, if we're going to do your blood work now and we're going to look at these things and you're going to have a physician that supports your lifestyle and you're going to do this, and then 3 and 4 months and we test it again, then we're going to see like, okay, this stuff has improved. So your choices to eat less saturated fat is making a difference. Like, I'm going to show you. And so we should be somewhat comfortable in being able to understand the observable, measurable, and repeatable components of why this works in general and why people stay doing what they're doing for as long as possible, right? Because they can constantly take stock of where they are, what they've done, what works, and then how to make it better, right? Like, if you don't lift heavy weights, you're not going to get stronger. How do I know that? Because not putting more than 55 pounds on the bar isn't going to improve my back squat, right? Like, we know the concepts behind this stuff now. We just need to open up the conversation and get coaches and affiliate owners comfortable talking about, you know, the other types of metrics that we'll be using to assess like improvements in health.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to bring up is that Tom used the word druthers, and it's one of my favorite words, and people should use that word more often.
Did I say druthers?
You
You did. And I was like, yes, he used the word druthers. It's just one of those words that I'm fascinated by, words that seem to disappear from language. It's just one of the weird quirks that I have. I'm like, what happened to that? Who canceled that word? Anyway, less on that later. But you know, you have to be very, I've said this before, but identity is a great thing, but you have to be very careful when you choose an identity, because identity can create opportunities, but it also can just as quickly create limitations. And in regards to the CrossFit coach versus the health coach thing, I want to be very careful with that, because what we're not implying, or at least what I'm hoping to not imply, is that health coach is somehow different than CrossFit coach, because the world that I see in the future is that the CrossFit coach becomes synonymous with health coach. It
100%.
is the same thing. And
100%.
right now, you know, there is almost a line in the sand where it's like, my identity is just CrossFit coach. And we have to get them to be empowered to believe in the fact that they have an opportunity to move forward with that thing.
Yes. No, and I think that perfectly ties together the points that Lisa was making that I wanted to highlight. I think you are spot on, Tony, that reframing, right, is helping us. Did we lose her?
We lost Lisa. It's all right. Hopefully that doesn't screw up this whole episode, or we're re-recording it again, but it's okay. Keep going, Tom.
I was just going to give her so much props, but I think she was completely right in that, you know, the use of the term health coach or what have you that we are in the podcast here, you are already a health coach. Right. What you are doing is the most important stuff to improve health already. This term that we may be using right in this podcast is really about helping us reframe to think about ourselves differently. But I 100% agree that ultimately in the end, CrossFit, it should just be CrossFit coach, and that should encompass this understanding and what separates us from everyone else who's trying to do functional fitness, right? That a CrossFit coach, right, and someone who's been through this educational process has a deep, right, and nuanced understanding of the impact of what we're actually doing in here on a daily basis, and the resources for me to really get everything I need to optimize my health, right? And that's unique, right? That's something that nobody else has.
Yeah, I think that's the individual qualifier too, right? Where it's, I think being a fitness coach has a limitation. Insert XYZ modality that you would like to be a professor of, right? Whether that be one of the cheese stick brands or a CrossFit, but that has a limitation. And what I think that we're the future that we're talking about creating is that we are talking about a space where we know what we believe is that to be a CrossFit coach, you are a health coach, and not necessarily, changing that name, because the other ones won't be able to get there for all the reasons that we know to be true, right? Like
Right.
high intensity movement is fantastic in terms of eliciting a very specific stimulus and response to that stimulus. But as it applies to the other things that are important, like, in a group atmosphere, and as well as learning and failing at new skills and the neurological aspects of fitness and all the other things that we can insert that are uniquely available in every single CrossFit affiliate, that's what makes you a health coach, right? Those are the things that we take for granted because they're just part and parcel part of what it means to be a CrossFitter and do CrossFit. But there are the things that are unique, massive advantages over what it means to be, somebody in a polo shirt with a whistle at the average gym, turning the clock on and trying to replicate their idea of what fitness is at a core level. And so I think, it's important that we highlight those things. And anybody that's listening to this, it starts to realize that, like, oh, we're not talking about changing what you do, right? The reason I asked about what it's like to walk into Chagrin Falls is because that should sound very familiar to every single affiliate, right?
Yep.
It's like, oh yeah, we already do that thing. And maybe the other question, which is what I was going to ask, is like, let's flip flop that. And if let's say I walked into McCoy Medical because I want to hire you to be my individual or my primary care physician.
Yep.
What does that process look like, and how does that end up leading to the gym potentially?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the same process, right? It starts with that kind of connection, an hour and a half of just talking and going over history, then the data collection phase, and then the execution and the creation of your lifestyle concepts plan. But what happens through that process, and because we take our time in doing it, you have a deep understanding of why high intensity interval work is important, because we tested your VO2. And if you're not above average, high, or elite for your age group, we know that that's an important area to focus on, right?
Yeah.
And because we get your body composition analysis, we understand if you're under muscled or over adipose, right? And if that's the case, and we have signs of metabolic dysfunction, we know that we need to focus on beta oxidation and improving mitochondrial density and function. You have any understanding of why doing zone 2 is going to be more important for us here, right? And if we have lab markers or other things that are abnormal, then we know that that's important too. And if you're socially isolated, then that's something that we talk about. When we get to the execution of how this happens, wow, it just so happens that I have one entity that checks all 4 of those boxes. Now, you don't have to do that, and you can execute on all of these things individually. But when you talk about lowering a barrier to resistance and improving the likelihood of you being consistent and hitting all these things, imagine having a program where you have community connection every day, where you do strength and resistance training every day in conjunction with high intensity interval work, right, in this shared setting. Like, that checks all of those boxes that we need to work on. And so just from an execution standpoint, it becomes a natural choice, right? And a lot of times what we'll do is folks will get this, like, they haven't moved heavyweight before, they never front squatted, back squatted, right? So part of that will, be doing a movement assessment with Jen, as they build out their at-home protocol. But a lot of times we do that in the affiliate while there's a class going on, right? And they see that and they're like, oh, wow, that looks interesting. And they're like, that person looks like me. If they could do it, I could do that. And wow, you have all these class options. Like, I could come in at noon, or I could come in at 5, or I could come in at 5:30 in the morning. And then it's done. And so I think it becomes a natural, like, you don't have to tell people, right? People self-select, and that's the best way to do it. And this goes back to motivational interviewing, right? It's like, it is going to be infinitesimally more successful if you come up to the solution to execute on this than me telling you what to do. So me trying to shove CrossFit down somebody's throat who all they've ever seen is the games on TV and, pictures of Noah and Tia or what have you, with their 12 packs, like that is not going to register. But if you get into an affiliate and you see what's actually happening, then the boxes, the wheels start clicking all on their own, right? And it does the work for you as an affiliate owner, as a coach, as a medical provider. And that's the best way to be successful.
Yeah. And what I
And
think,
then
hopefully, with everybody, go ahead, Jen.
No, I was gonna say, just, to add on to understanding kind of like the patient experience, right? We can talk about the role of the affiliate coach or the CrossFit coach / health coach, right? Because those should be the same things, but because we know that health exists in the CrossFit affiliate, but for a lot of affiliate owners and stuff, I think collectively we want to pull them a little bit into what's actually going on in healthcare, like in real time, right? And understand that there is a conversation with people that aren't in the CrossFit space, right? Just the Joe Schmo, citizen down the street, whatever, that knows that they should be paying attention to their health and are searching out ways to find information to support that, right? So we just need to share that type of information as well and get them comfortable having, as Tom explained, those conversations with, patients and, the PT clinic down the street that has a whole bunch of, whatever patients and stuff that you make a connection with. You talk about how you can support their health in this way. And then that leads all tunnels kind of pointing to CrossFit as health, right?
And just as there's so much interest on the community member and the coach and the affiliate side at exploring this more, there is just as much, if not more, discussion in the medical community about how to transition from healthcare 2.0 to 3.0. And there are just as many physicians and other healthcare practitioners and allied healthcare professionals who are suffering and depressed and burnt out, and they don't know what to do next. And I think ultimately what we're trying to do and what I'm so passionate about, because I was that person for 20 years, is to lower the barrier of entry for everybody, right? For people in the community and for healthcare professionals to start to build a health home and actually execute on this, right? Less talking, more doing. It's not rocket science, but you need guidance, right? And understanding kind of how to execute, what the steps are, and to have support. And that's what we're interested in doing, is actually getting the work done and impacting people's lives instead of just talking about the potential impacts.
Yeah. I think hopefully the takeaway that people get from this in asking those two questions was that you and Jen's original answer to what it means to come into the gym sounds very familiar. It doesn't really sound much different at all. Maybe there's a little bit of an element of more conversation than maybe we're doing at the moment, right? But seems pretty normal. It's not overwhelming. And then on the other side of it, what it sounds like to become a patient seems like a journey that inevitably leads, almost accidentally or otherwise, to the affiliate if done correctly. And so my point in asking that for both of you guys is that the intention here is to show the power of an alliance between creating a relationship between a healthcare practitioner or a physician rather.
Yep. And
the reason for that is simple, because there's a million people who are walking into those facilities who would never step foot in your door, unfortunately. Right. But if we can better modify or create a relationship between those two parties, which is exactly what you guys are building, is a way to help people understand that, hey, we're not talking about CrossFit and turtle shell abs and all these things. We're talking about, this is what you need to do to increase your lifespan, to increase your health span. And these are what these things look like. It just so happens that there's the place over here right next door that this actually happens at. And so I think for anybody listening, this is an affiliate owner, you're probably hopefully jumping up and down as excited as even I am, because you're like, yes, great. Those are the people I want to work with. There's maybe some affiliates who are just like, I don't want to work with those people because they're overwhelming to me. And the good news in that is that even those people, with the help and the relationship that they could create with, physicians in their network, they don't need to be overwhelming, because they don't need to do anything different, because they're still just humans. They need to do more human stuff, because unfortunately, as humans, we don't do human shit anymore. So I think this part of it is all very exciting, because the reality is that CrossFit was designed and built and created and ran so perfectly that it doesn't really require much of a change in terms of anything that we do. It just changes the one thing, which is how we talk about this thing. And that's, I think, that's a curse of its own druthers, right? It's its own problem, right? And I think what we have here is when somebody sits down with me now, when they come in the affiliate, it's not just let me tell you what we do here, or $150 a month unlimited. What we have now, what people are getting is the opportunity to sit down, listen to people, understand them, and say, I'd like to give you a prescriptive model, right? Based on what you've told me today, based on what we've explored together, and based on what I've uncovered in our time spent together, this is what needs to be done to get you to this castle in the sky that you've just told me that you want to create, regardless of what that castle is. And that, to an affiliate owner, is worth way more money, right? Because let's call it what it really is. It's worth way more money than $150 a month. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars over the lifespan of this client. But what we're really talking about is an increasingly difficult relationship to exit, right? You're talking about a client who's like, we're not just talking about, this is what I come to a couple of times a week to do some fitness, then I go do other things, but this health home that we're talking about creating, you don't quit that, right? You can't, because we can do quit life. Like, I mean, that's a terrible way to say it, but like, that's truly what would be happening, right? And so that's what's so exciting to me about all of this, is that we're not talking about changing CrossFit or changing any part of CrossFit. We're talking about people better understanding how to apply it and implement it. But we're really talking about is how to make it worth the money that it's always been worth, and helping the people who don't know how to articulate that be able to better understand it. Like, I got this doctor in my corner and I got all these other people in my corner, and I'm going to change your life. This is what it's going to cost, right? Like, I don't want to reduce it to cost. It's not that basic, but to anybody listening, they want to know how they're going to make more money.
No, and I think from an affiliate owner standpoint, that's really exciting, right? Because it's not necessarily the cookie cutter, take this, put it in here, do it exactly like I'm doing it, and it's going to work, right? But as an affiliate owner that needs to think big picture in terms of like program design, right? And how they're going to create the structure to their own, small business or whatever, right? It's not just how many days in a week am I going to program squats and deadlifts and whatever, how many community events am I going to have? What I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to look back and I'm going to see other program designs that have existed and other affiliates that have worked, and I can implement that in my space, right? I can see that with McCoy Medical at these 2 locations, like it was set up like this. I have the resources, like it's giving support to start expanding the knowledge base of how to structure a program that's going to work for your community, right? And so I think that has to be something that gets affiliate owners thinking, a little bit outside of just what am I going to do every class day in and day out, right? How am I going to design a program in my community that hits all these benchmarks and metrics?
Yeah, I think the other piece too that we have to remember is that the first thing when I sit down with a potential patient that I ask is, why are you here? Right. And it should be the same thing when somebody walks into the affiliate side. It's not, this is what I'm going to shove down your throat. It's that, why are you here? We need to be surfacing the need. And then we have this whole tool bag of things that we can pull out to help engage that person to address whatever that biggest priority need is, right? But we have to get comfortable at asking those open-ended questions. But what's important is that we then have the knowledge and the resources and the understanding of how to deal with those questions, because you may get some answers that you may not be prepared for. And that's part of building them. Yeah, that's part of building out your community of resources of providers, right? I mean, that happens to me a lot. And I have other really smart people that I talk to and lean on when there's stuff that I may not feel 100% comfortable with or is outside of my scope, right? That's part of being a good coach, a good affiliate owner, and a good medical professional, right? Yeah. And we're only going to help people by having more tools and resources to help them achieve their goals. But if we don't ask them what their goals are, it's going to take us a lot longer to get there.
Yeah, to not know the answer is such a gift, I think, and that requires society in general to really get back to that one. Is like, you're not supposed to know, you're supposed to learn. Like, we're not supposed to contain and possess and control this information. But to the point of sitting down as an affiliate owner, I think they all do think that they do that, right? People come in, why are you here today? And they're like, I want to start CrossFit. And from that point forward, the investigation ceases and the explanation begins, right? They're like, great.
Right.
What are you thinking? Right. And then they start just telling you 3 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever that looks like. And then you just start telling them what you're going to do. That would be a lot like if you went to your doctor for the first time and you said, Doc, I got this thing. And without you exploring any more of how I got that thing, if your doctor wasn't like, how long has this been happening? What's this doing? Like if there wasn't more questions that came after, like I'm feeling this certain way, and they just said, okay, great, here, take this medicine, you'd probably be a little bit worried, right? You'd be like, do you want to know more about the weird rash that just popped up? Like, how long has it been there? Where did it come from? Was I rolling around in the grass? Like, you're just like, oh, you'll be fine. Just take this thing. And you just dismiss it and walked out the room. You'd be like, but that's literally what's happening inside a CrossFit affiliate almost all the time. And they don't mean to do it. Right? You're just like, here, we'll take you on a tour of the gym and it's unlimited. It just doesn't sound amazing. You could do this every day if you want to. People are like, I don't even know what this is. What are you talking about? Right. And they're just like, well, it's $150. Like, they're just like, how
That's
quick can I quit if it doesn't work?
That's right. That's a perceived value though, right? And that's a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
So for affiliate owners that don't have access to more bandwidth or the ability to officially charge what they should be paid for the amount of care and work that goes into it, right? They're going to be limited in, being able to schedule consults or have 15-minute conversations with somebody that walks in the door and then follow-ups and stuff. Like there's a lack of value on that two-way street. And it's the same thing for, people that come in. Well, it's only $150 a month. You can quit anytime. It's unlimited. Like we can't compete against Snap Fitness that charges $85 for a 24-hour access with fucking Smith machines. Like that's not the same thing. Right. And the conversation needs to be vastly different. And it's hard to establish the value difference or differentiator in that, right? But it's something that's very different, and it comes to asking questions and having time. And then also as an owner, investing those conversations with your coaches as well, because their buy-in is really important, right? Because I don't see every member every day, but my coaches do, right? So you have to keep talking to them.
I think, Tony, if you come in, right, and it's whether I'm in the affiliate or I'm in the office in the clinic, and if the answer is I want to do CrossFit, or somebody says I want to get healthy, right, then generally I'm going to be asking why 3 or 4 more times in different ways, right? Oh, well, you want to get help? I want to do CrossFit. It's like, oh, tell me more about CrossFit. What do you know about it, right? And then and unpack that. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, you're going to get to a level of depth that will surprise you. But not only are you getting to understand that person's why, that person may not even know it themselves. And so you're surfacing it for them, and that gives them an anchor that they can really pull on those days when motivation isn't there, but they need to find that discipline. Right.
Yeah. I laugh because, well, one, it probably sounds like we prompt you guys to say these things because you basically say the same, like we say why 5 times, but I laugh because I'm thinking about CrossFit affiliate owners being, faced with the idea of asking someone who says, I want to sign up today, and saying why. They literally they were like, I'm going to get their credit card before they have a chance to change their mind. Right? I couldn't help myself but start laughing. They've been like, you're out of your mind. The last thing I'm asking this person who's got their credit card on why they want to sign up.
Are you sure you want to do that?
It's true.
Yeah, like, before you change your mind, are you under the influence of any narcotics or alcohol? Right? But it's important. Sure, take their credit card payment, get them signed up, do whatever, but please just go back the conversation and get to know them, because it is such a big missing piece of it. And I get it. Scarcity rules the game, right? And so I understand you don't know where the next customer's coming from. The last thing you want to do is lose the one that you got in front of you. And all those things may in fact be true, but at least once you have them, just get to know them, right? And so really what we're talking about with this whole thing is not necessarily, how to involve becoming a doctor inside the affiliate or how to turn the affiliate into a doctor's office. What we're really talking about is how to really, truly give the glory to the affiliate that it's always deserved, which is to become this health home. And it really starts with empowering the affiliate owners and the coaches inside the affiliate to have conversations with people and get to know them, because that part just got so missed in terms of like just trying to get clients in the door and turn people into CrossFitters. Because we know, right? We know the one thing, if you just start, you're going to love this thing, right? And so like, that's the simple solution. Just get them into class. The faster I get them into class, the more they're going to get success. And then they're definitely going to come back until it doesn't work, right? And so when it doesn't work, you have to sit down with that person and help them remember why they came in. Mm-hmm. And if you've never done that, how do you do that?
And Greg has a great riff on that, right? Where he's having a conversation with a coach and their affiliate and asking him about it. And he's like, well, tell me about that person. The guy's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, tell me about that. And he's like, that's Betty. Her husband died 2 years ago, right? His son's in the Air Force. Like, he knows everything about it. And he's making the point that you need to know them as a person, right? And
Right.
that's the connection that keeps them coming back, right?
Exactly.
It's that human connection. And it's so easy for us just to go to the whiteboard and do the workout and not go there, because sometimes that's difficult and it takes energy. And this comes back to how you recharge as an individual, and if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and what that looks like for balance, and being empathetic and not necessarily sympathetic. Like, there's a lot that goes into that. But that's part of the challenge and the growth and the beauty of evolving as a coach and as a person, right? And we should all be excited about that. Not thinking that it's going to be easy, or a linear process, but man, it's so beautiful when it turns into something more.
Yeah. And I think, that brings it full circle back to the beginning part, which is like, what we have is the ability to care about people, right? And so when you get to people's why they built these affiliates, CrossFit changed their life. This thing made them inconceivably different, and they want to be able to pay it forward, and they want to help people. And so I think it's a lost art. A lot of people don't necessarily know really what, we love to throw the word care around a lot. People think that they care about people, and that can absolutely happen in terms of running a really, really high quality class and doing it really well and caring about points, performance, and standards. But it requires more, right? It requires conversation, it requires conflict, it requires conflict resolution, it requires, understanding people, and the willingness, really the excitement to get to do that. Because when you care about somebody, you're not going to let your family member make bad mistakes. You're not going to let your loved one make bad mistakes. And I know that to be true of the people in the gym, but I know that inside every affiliate that's listening to this, there's probably somebody who's coming to class 5 days a week and they're still gaining weight, but you don't want to pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on? Right? Because you don't want to be there, but I know you want to do it, but you just don't know how to do it. And so much of this is about being able to give them the empowerment to be able to play a bigger role in the people they already have, but to really bring in new people and play such a much larger pivotal role in their entire transformation. And that's what's so exciting to me about the whole, I could call it the merger of the two worlds in terms of what, Health 3.0 is. And really the role that only the affiliate, the CrossFit affiliate is the only uniquely qualified place that I'm aware of on the planet that can actually facilitate and support Health 3.0. Besides obviously physicians. And so I think you guys have put together is absolutely, amazing. Not because, it's this proprietary one-off thing. It's that you both speak CrossFit so well, right? And you understand the elegance and the eloquence of what's happening in the affiliate, and you realize that the power is there. And so anybody that's listening to this, I hope they leap into action and they reach out and they understand hey, I want to do more for the right people for the right reasons, right? And so this sounds like doing that. What does that look like?
And I think, even like Jen, you were saying in your own journey, how you got to a point is okay, I can't do, what more can I do? I want something more. It wasn't because you stopped or didn't have the capacity to care for the people. You cared for the people, but you didn't know how to do it in a different, more impactful, meaningful way. And I think what Health 3.0 is showing is you can take, to your point, Tony, affiliate owners or coaches will think that they care for people by making sure they're moving well and they're staying safe and they're following a good program. But you can take that care to a more human level and more connected just by having better conversations and more meaningful conversations. But also it just gives you that capacity to then go, yeah, I actually, not only do I feel like I care, but I actually am living that care.
Yeah. This is the beautiful part too about the design here, is that you're taking these conversations from the sterile clinic sick-based environment and putting them in the space where health is actually created, right? And where you can act on it. And that transition is very important for us to kind of shift the paradigm of the sick care versus healthcare scenario that we're in currently, is that these conversations and these relationships should be being developed to prevent sickness from ever developing in the first place, right? And that's not the way that things are designed currently. That's not where these conversations currently happen. And what an exciting and powerful way to flip the script and to right the ship, right? And to have these relationships developed and this knowledge gained in the place where you can actually do something about it.
And then
how many, sorry, Jen, how many people, they go to their physician, their GP, because they're, in a state of, I guess, being unwell, and they just go, well, you need to exercise more. And to a person in that state, it's completely overwhelming. It's like,
Yeah.
well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And the same as in the gym, we have clients like, well, you really need to see a physician, a GP, to get that detailed stuff. And they're like, oh, like they're just going to lecture me or just tell me to do this, or, whereas by melding the two, you can take away some of that genericness. And then, like you said, some of that sterility, but also that, when your health coach takes you down that journey and says, okay, you need to incorporate more movement. Here's some specific things that we can guide you on. They're going to help you specifically. Here's a plan for you, rather than, just exercise more. Well, does that mean doing, aerobics on the TV? Do I have to walk 20,000 steps? Do I have to run a marathon? It gets to somebody in that state of not well, it's overwhelming. And then they just get paralysis by analysis and go, it's just too hard.
Yeah, and the part that drives me just as crazy, Lisa, is that, as the physician in the clinic, when I'm seeing 20 to 30 people and I have 7 to 10 minutes in a day and I see Tony on the roster, I'm like, sweet, I'm going to be in and out of this room in 90 seconds.
I get that effect a lot.
So that I can go and see the next person who's got 17 medications and doesn't know, their right from their left, right? And that is completely undermining how we should think about health, because we all have stuff that we should work on, regardless of what our external appearance, looks like, and what our blood pressure necessarily says, and what the scale says, right? And to negate that because of the structure of the system, essentially, because I don't have time to connect with Tony and surface the why because of the nature of how things are designed, like that has to change.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to this, and I think we've done a good job bringing it out in the 3 episodes. And it's been probably the most exciting episode. No offense to all the other guests who've been on here, but it's been definitely the most exciting one, mainly because it paints such a powerful and compelling and just future that it's almost impossible to not get behind. And for anybody who's not been a part of CrossFit for a long time, like the reason this whole thing exists is because of Greg's ability to crystallize those just causes. Sometimes that was to pick a fight with sugar, sometimes it was to go after other things, but like there was always something to believe in. And I'm not saying that just because he's gone, those days are gone, but it took a minute, but there's definitely something new to belong to or to believe in. And so it's so powerful to get behind something like this and to see a future that is so justifiable and is so worth pursuing, that it's incredibly, valuable. And I would love to keep talking about it, but everybody here is busy, and I don't think it will keep anybody's attention for much longer. And these were very, aside from making sure I didn't wear the same clothes to each episode, that was the biggest challenge. It was a legitimate hurdle. I had to go back, like, what did I wear? Anyway, but aside from that, I think, anybody listening to this, make sure you listen to all 3 episodes. And if you're as excited about it as we are, you got to reach out, right? Because you have to take the next step and take the action. What you're doing is already working. Now let's do it for more people and get you to talk to more people about it.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say there'll be hopefully lots of opportunities to connect with a lot of people that are interested in the very near term. So if you haven't heard anything, then come soon.
Love it.
Fantastic. All right, guys. I'm sure we could have parts 4 through 10, and I'm sure I have zero doubt that we'll have you guys back on.
I'll definitely be dragging everybody back on, so it's okay. I won't get invited, but everybody else is.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll have my 2 new co-hosts. I'm not sure who made you the boss, but it's been awesome to chat to you guys and to dig into this. And I know that we've taken everyone on a journey, and the feedback we've had from the first 2 episodes has been outstanding. So, I think that this is an important path to go down, and look forward to exploring it further with you guys and Tony.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it, you guys. Thanks for having us.
Don't hit end just yet. Okay.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.